Yeah. Plus the fact you have to counteract now generational thinking that says if you go to college, you're everything. If you don't go to college, you're some kind of loser. And
That's
that's
a
now
problem.
that's
Mhm.
part of the generation. Or that kid who says, gee, I want to go be a concrete worker because my dad runs a concrete business. And the educational system says, whoa, bad, bad, evil, evil.
Well,
Uh,
that is our generation
yeah,
who was taught that story, and the story worked for our generation. And all of us have university degrees and stuff like that. It worked for us. But about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it started turning around,
yeah,
and it doesn't work that way anymore.
yeah.
And so the need now to push down trade, technology, hands-on manual work at the high school. But now, how to get it back, or how to get back a form of it. I would love to hear some ideas, because I don't have all the answers.
If I had all the answers, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be making
Okay.
zillions of dollars telling everybody.
Well, that's a
No,
thing.
no, but no, I guess, Joe, what you're asking, and I'm just trying to sit it in my head here. How do we reverse this trend that, shop, the respect for people with trade knowledge was downgraded, and now we find ourselves, how do we change this attitude back again? And like you said, this particular hurricane, what, 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing another show. We had another hurricane. And, 4 or 5 years before that, we had another hurricane. And now they're coming in pairs. So now it's hitting two different areas at the same time. And it's thinning out whatever people are out there to do house construction, building construction, etc. So how do we reverse this whole situation? That's an excellent question. Uh, Let me go to Manuel. Let's see what Manuel has to say on this. I'm going to put
Well,
him on the spot.
yeah, because one of the things that I'm going through in some of my experience that I've seen exactly, it is starting to reverse, okay? Community colleges, okay? At one point, they were focused on making sure they just taught to make sure they got them into the next level, college level, university level. Now that's changing. In a discussion I had with a group of others that are also looking at this issue, they were saying specifically from the community college areas, and a couple of community college presidents that I had the honor to be with, they were saying, we're making a change. We're not focusing anymore into making sure that they go on to the next level. We're trying to make sure we have the programs to be able to teach them to be able to work once they walk out the door here. So that is changing, but it's taken a heck of a big turn, and it's hard. It's very, very hard. We're still looking at, especially in the parents' side of it, the parents want the best for their kids. So immediately they think college, university, you have to have a degree. And especially in the Asian community, that's all they're focused in, right? And we're starting to see that if they're prepared to be able to get out at Bosco and they have that ability to work and then also complete their college education, they have a strength that the parents are starting to recognize. In the Hispanic world, it's always been, make sure you know how to take care of yourself once you get out. So it's a different focus in that side of it too. So there's also a different focus in every area of heritage or ethnic background that you have. But it's starting to change, and especially in the need the country is showing that we need more people that know how to do hands-on work. And but it's slow. And how do you accomplish all those things? We're still trying to find out. Right now, one other area that the school has an opportunity, there's a new university that's starting to come together. They're focused, Catholic Polytechnic University, focusing on the sciences and the skills and the technology with the spiritual focus to make sure that as these changes come through, and especially artificial intelligence starts to take more and more handles away from us, that the students or those that are preparing those things are prepared to do it with mankind in mind, because then things are changed. So all those things are changes that we're going through that we need to keep on talking about to be able to make the change in the right direction.
Let me throw in something that you mentioned, Manuel, and just for discussion. When I grew up in Mexico. And there was an area, a couple of areas where they said, that's a Polytechnical school over there. And I remember it stood out in my head, Polytechnical. And I never heard anybody says, oh my God, they teach skills that, are diverting people away from being attorneys and lawyers and all this other stuff. And as I travel around the world, the word Polytechnical is very common.
Yep.
It's very well used. It's very well respected that somebody went to a Polytechnical in Monterrey, whether it be Mexico or whether it's certain schools in India. Oh my God, this was like the MIT of India, and it was a Polytechnical schools. Do we need to sort of have a mind shift for ourselves that we're not just shop teachers, we're actually Polytechnical educators, and then address more people and says, look, you better start respecting us, or you're going to have to let Google fix whatever destruction this hurricane caused. I'm throwing it out there for discussion, guys. I don't know.
When you take a look at shops or vocational trained teaching, you also look at the industrial arts. And industrial arts are changing radically. It used to be, it continues to be making products that go, the craft of being able to make products for the market. That continues to be a need. And it's just changing, a lot of it, I think, is just changing the aspect or the mindset that we have as to how we accomplish that. So Polytechnic focuses into all those areas. A master's degree in, even engineering sometimes focuses into the higher intellectual points, where we need to start focusing into the fact that we need to have the knowledge of building the things in hands-on to be able to resolve each challenge that comes across. So, and that's where I think the shop or the change, the adaptations of shops into industrial arts or industrial technology focuses, that is part of what the tech has been going through, Bosco Tech, into making that shift so that you recognize the need of being able to have hands-on ability to resolve your issues as you move forward and continue to build the things that need to be built.
I keep hearing the term from all three of you, hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. Why is that so important? Joe?
How about if we call it manual work? Okay. And part of our struggle is imagery and a form of prejudice, because shop classes for a long time were this dumping ground for low socioeconomic kids of color. Okay, this kid is not an academic mind. He's plenty smart, but he can't sit still. Put him in the shop class. Get him out of the academic classes so all the other kids can go to college. And so because of that, that earned a stigma, all right? So you walk into, the kids in my little shop class here who do the best are the ones who sometimes are gifted academically, but for the most part, they're not. They are plenty smart, but they are not cut out for the mold we've made for them in the rest of the campus. Point note there, because that's where it all is. But I think for us, we need to bring back honor in manual work. Manual work is honorable. I don't care what people say. For instance, and you all know this, and those of you in the audience probably do too, kid can get out of high school, go get a 4-year degree, spend X amount of dollars, get out at the age of 22, not have any job skills, have to start at the bottom somewhere with the massive load of college debt. Mm-hmm. If a kid gets out of high school at the age of 17, 18, with some manual skills, they can immediately start working a job, jump into something with a $40,000 or $50,000 wage. After 4 years, they've upped their wage substantially and they have no debt. That's honorable. And so I think we have to just change part of that conversation.
Look, plus the fact is, I'm going to use auto mechanics or auto technicians as an example. You get out of high school, you have some skill to go to the car dealership to work there. And the first thing you do is have you hosing off the parking lot, washing cars, emptying trash. working at all the low-level jobs because everybody at that dealership started there. Then you work your way up to higher and higher positions. Well, the problem is you have a lot of these kids coming out of high school thinking, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to walk down to Ford of Montebello. I'm going to walk on the dealer lot. And they're going to pay me $80,000. They don't understand the process that you got to start at the bottom and work your way up. And as Joe said, there's nothing wrong with that. We've all done it in some form or the other, because they do that, A, to weed out the new employees, and B, to see who has that work ethic. Because I don't care if you come out of college with a PhD in whatever, if you don't have that work ethic, you're a useless being.
Very critical, that work ethic. And a couple of points that, came to mind as we were talking. First, the technology side of it. We've now gotten so used to type everything, to have a computer to input. The fact still remains that if you use a pencil and you write things out, you get to retain that information much stronger. Why? Because there's that connection between your hand and your brain as to what you're doing. And that is so critical in being able. So when we're talking about manual work, the critical nature of our neurology, the way we work is there. It has to be manual for our brain to really grasp it, okay? Secondly, one of the movies that still comes to mind very strong when we talk about this discrepancy of being able to have the education and not, is that movie, and I forget what the movie's called, but it was all about the contests that the universities and major technology had, or industry had, in being able to develop a submersible object that would go through a number of turns in a whole maze to accomplish and open a little latch for whatever it was. So they gave it to whoever wanted to go in there. So most of it was universities that plunked a lot of money into these programs, into this project, into this team. But there was a high school teacher in Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, so you know where I'm going.
I saw the movie.
And this kid who is, again, Hispanic, minority based, that didn't have, as you were saying, that grasp of intellect, if you want to call it, of the academic side of it, but knew how to solve the issues with stuff that came out of almost a trash can, right?
They beat out MIT.
Yep, and beat the kids out of MIT and all the universities with all that money. So with $500 to $1,000, they put together the unit that beat the $1,000 projects that the universities had. So that's what we're talking about, how we can continue to accomplish that. And it's there, it can be done. Well, it has been done.
Joe asked the question, how do we reverse things in this area? And yet, I'm going to have to thank Joe for his information, which I've been writing down. Joe provides us with, an electrician is coming out of high school, going 4 years, apprenticeship, all these steps, and now they're making on an average of $50,000, $60,000. A bricklayer is going through these steps. This is how they make. For the most part, I think most people think that if you're going through the trades, you're going to go into an industry that you're basically going to make minimum wage.
That's the perception.
That's the perception.
It's no longer the case.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't have those figures anymore. People don't, they put out figures of college, i.e. 4-year degrees, but they don't tell us what people in the trades are making.
See, I got these numbers out of Bureau of Labor Statistics. Mm-hmm. They're 2 years old, but that's current enough.
Well, right now, they're not even current anymore, given the hurricane in the Louisiana, Houston area. Those people are in a whole different package now. And by the time they finish, they're going to have to start all over again because the next hurricane will probably hit in 3-4 years from now anyway.
Hurricanes are not an anomaly, but it's come up during a time period when we're dealing with people being sick and shut in. That's the anomaly. That has to be That the word is not discounted, but it has to be factored in. Okay. Still, there's a place for manual trades. I mean, what you guys are doing manual over there at that high school sounds awesome. You know,
the examples that I keep on hearing back from the alumni and those that go through there. In fact, even in my sons, both my sons went there. One of my sons, you know, once he came out of there, he started working at Firestone in the shop, you know, changing the tires, et cetera, doing all that stuff because he had the knowledge. He was already smog certified and all that stuff coming out of, you know, a 5-year school. Currently, he heads up the facilities and management for Southern California Gas Sempra Energy. Okay, he went, I mean, and he's still moving up in that area. So most of our alumni have done that. One of the alumni that is turned to be a very good friend of mine, Joe Reyes. He heads up Reyes Construction, one of the largest construction companies in the state of California with $4 billion in contract with the federal government. He was an alumni, came out of the tech, never went to college, yet he was able, with that ability and that knowledge, able to build a company that now hires hundreds, if not thousands of employees. So it's there, it can be done. We just need to continue. You know, Montebello Unified School District is the one that started to mimic the same type of school. What's the name of the school, Kirk? I forget. It's the technology school that Montebello High School.
I'm familiar with that program also, but it has never been presented to the public in any way, shape, or form because I can see some faults in it already when the system was built. But that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and they've been a little challenged, but the ability is there, and there's other schools doing that. Because if you go through it, you do have stories of certain schools that are focused into the same thing that we've focused, that have had some good accomplishments. So we gotta have to continue that focus and keep on doing it.
So now
I had a kid who went to Skills USA, who got into video photography, filmmaking. He got a job in Hollywood as a camera operator.
Mm-hmm.
Went on to win an award, Emmy Award for sports photography. Now, never had a little bit of college, but never had a degree. Got his Emmy in sports videography. Came back to school to talk to the teachers about how to make this all work. And the principal just dismissed it out of hand. He wasn't important because he didn't have a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
But the kid had an Emmy Award.
Yeah.
Both of you touched on a thing here that's important to our cause. Okay, I'm going to call it our cause, right? What else? Is people in admin work really, really hard to get highly educated. Many of them now in the urban areas have PhDs. It's almost a qualification as a high school principal. Not really. There's this underlying thing. And so that makes people very narrow in their thinking without being pejorative in saying that. That's not what I mean, not narrow people, but their education is of a sort that focuses them on a very few things. They've never had the need for the manual trades. They don't see the necessity for it. But part of our job as people who teach these things is to pull these administrators in and educate them in gentle ways, okay? In ways that you command their language, you command an understanding of their numbers, because their numbers count more than your numbers. Our numbers are anecdotal. All we do is tell stories. Yeah, my kid came back from MIT, and when he was in here, he was making his own phonograph player and an amplifier and a speaker. Okay, well, it doesn't mean anything. So we have to educate them on the kinds of things that are really important. So I think that's a step. And then you have the turnover of admin, like what, every 3 years in public schools, on average, admin turnover and move on. That's another thing. So it's constant. We have to be constant at this.
Consistency. You know, you stop and think again. Corporate world is changing, but you know the demand of having an MBA is still there, right? My son had to get his MBA before he was able to climb higher and higher. Yet, if you take a look at MIT, the head of the special group that they have that are looking at cutting information or cutting edge technology, the guy doesn't have a degree. Yet that's not publicized, because then it would bring down the quality of education at MIT. I don't know. But the fact is, the guy that heads up this cutting edge technology program does not have a degree. So it is changing. It's going to have to change, but it's one of these processes that are very, very hard to do. Our mental capacity to recognize the abilities of manual labor is a challenge.
I like it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You look at Steve Jobs, Bill Gates,
Exactly.
Wozniak from Apple.
Exactly.
I think Richard Branson, who's I'm reading about now, and there's probably half a dozen others who dropped out of college to pursue their dream, who went on to do great and wonderful stuff, who, again, I'm not saying it's not important.
It's got a place and it's got a structure that we have to follow and develop at the high school level, which I think is so critical to develop those habits and those abilities at a high school level, because that's where those habits really get ingrained in our abilities. From there, then we take them off to the next level.
I'm going to share a story. My doctor